Welcome back, Gale Force, and today we're going to be doing episode 1 of my new series, Planning for Specific Maps, or PFSM for short. We'll be taking a look at specific notorious maps in Fire Emblem and discussing some of the best ways to tackle them. Today, we'll be taking a look at Phantom Ship from Ephraim's Route of FE8. So, what makes Phantom Ship so notorious in the first place? For starters, it's a fog of war map, which already adds in a degree of difficulty. On top of that, most of your units will be restricted in their movement due to the small size of the boat you'll be fighting your foes on. As if that wasn't enough, you will face several powerful enemies along with a large number of them being able to fly around while your units cannot. The combination of these things can make the chapter exceedingly frustrating. So, how do you manage it? We'll discuss a few strategies, but here are some units I highly recommend making use of here. Phantom Ship is extremely tough, so there's no shame in bringing out powerful units like Seth and Dussel for this occasion. Gilliam is also exceptional here, especially if he's been promoted. He'll be able to hold the bottom plank by himself reliably, or can hold the top planks alongside Dussel or Seth with relative ease. If you manage to lose Seth or fail to recruit Dussel, Kyle can serve as a decent replacement for the two. Franz can also serve in this role, but Kyle tends to be a bit more sturdy when they're of similar level. Finally, a healer is always important, and due to how much damage a lot of these enemies can dish out, I recommend the sturdier Molder over Natasha. As an added bonus, bringing a healer can allow you to make use of the Torch Staff, which can lower the difficulty of the map rather significantly. So, for planning, let's start with the most obvious plan, and one that actually doesn't involve Molder: low manning the map. By only bringing Seth, Gilliam, and Dussel, you can have one of them rescue Ephraim and then sit in the middle of the ship with a high durability weapon and some javelins. As long as each of them has an elixir and a pure water, they should be able to tank their way to victory while killing the enemies ahead in droves on the enemy phase. Whichever unit has rescued Ephraim can also make use of the convoy to grab more items as needed, and so it's recommended you have him be rescued by one of the two units on the top planks so that they can both make use of the items in the convoy. This strategy effectively turns the map into one long waiting game where you slowly whittle down the enemies with very few worries. So, what are the downsides to doing this? Well, it puts La Rochelle and Dazla at greater risk of dying, as this strategy doesn't exactly have you charging ahead to rescue or recruit either of them. On top of that, Ephraim will be acting as a backpack for one of your units and as such cannot recruit La Rochelle on the first turn you drop him either. Overall, the strategy is consistent, if a little unfun. Which leads us to strategy number 2: aggressively pushing the enemy. While this is far riskier to do, if you can manage to push up the upper planks from turn 3 and 4 with your fast units and manage to consistently one round, you can make your way to La Rochelle's ship right away with most of the enemy already dealt with. This will likely mean using units like Joshua, Lute, Arter, or Franz. If you can successfully pull this off, you'll reach La Rochelle's ship in no time, which is a far easier position to hold. The issue, of course, with a strategy like this is that it is far riskier as it relies on making use of your units, who will take great damage if they don't manage to dodge an enemy's attack. Moreover, if you fail to finish your enemies off in one combat, you'll likely be punished for it on their phase. You may have noticed that I didn't recommend using flyers on a map that is very limited in mobility if you aren't one, and there's a very good reason for that. Your three options for flyers at this point will be Vanessa, Tana, and Cormag. Vanessa and Tana aren't very durable, and you won't have had Tana around near long enough to potentially fix that. And while Cormag is durable, he's also got very low resistance, and his speed isn't high enough to take out many of the gargoyles that will appear in one turn. The moguls will destroy him. Using the flyers here is something of a trap, as the most difficult enemies you fight will be the enemy flyers, which will start appearing around the same time you'd want to push toward La Rochelle anyway. In fact, the boss of the chapter is an incredibly strong flyer who appears alongside the other flyers. This makes using your own flyers a risk and potentially even a liability. I hope this has given you some ideas of how to approach this map in the future, and if you like this kind of content, let me know and I'll consider making more of it. And if you feel like showing me some love, you can either subscribe if you haven't already, check out my Patreon, or become a YouTube channel member. Speaking of which, a special thank you to patrons 60 Sweep, Gorilla Danny, and Bosnia for subscribing at the Paladin tier, and Average Stat Pat and Caius Griffin for subscribing at the Great Lord tier. And also to YouTube members Jerry for joining at the Paladin tier and Caius Griffin, who again joined at the Great Lord tier. I'd really appreciate if you checked out the links in the description if you can, but otherwise, have a great rest of your day.